Hey, what's up, fuckers? Pittsburgh Weiss Schwartz back again. Another deck tech. We got Memory Snow today. Figured it'd be a good week to do Memory Snow since last week on the retrospective tier list video we had a couple comments about Memory Snow being a potential good pick for the meta coming up, which I mentioned also. If you listened all the way through, I did mention it.
Man, it's a 3-hour video. No one watches
At
all
the
that
end.
shit.
Yeah, I know.
They just skip. They just skip to where the tier list is done, and then they.
Yeah, Memory Snow. It was kind of like shoehorned in at the end, and I advocated for it for the tier list.
For all my pessimism about Memory Snow, it is a very competent set, all things considered. It has some really unique effects. So something you got to talk about.
It definitely has its niche, and I've been working a lot on like the Book Pants deck, which is I guess kind of like the go-to build for Memory Snow. It seems like the build that Bushiroad kind of funnels you into. And it's like very min-maxed. It's very all in on what it does and can't do the things it can't do. But I put a lot of time into it, so I'm ready to share the list with the world.
All right, I'll get to the first cards here.
So let's get right into it. All right, so these are like probably the two biggest cards in Memory Snow. Memory Snow is kind of like an anti-meta deck. Whereas the original Memory Snow is kind of, or I'm sorry, where the original ReZero set is more of just a
grindy,
good stuff, mid-rangey, grindy deck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Memory Snow is a lot more aggressive and targeted, and is probably the most anti-meta set I've seen in the game. By anti-meta, it has a lot of anti-effects, specifically these two cards, the Leave Everything to Me Rem. You can pay 1 and send it to your memory, and look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, take a Memory Snow character to your hand, which is pretty much the whole deck. It's the common trait. And when this card's in your memory at the beginning of your turn, or when it hits your memory, it applies effect cross-turn that says neither player can burn for instances of 1 damage. So if your opponent has a finisher like a Mikasa or Kaguya, something that's like burning for 1 a whole bunch of times, or even against stuff that's burning for X, just like normal Musashis or Love Live Sunshine with Yo, or just a lot of stuff nowadays too, like Bang Dream and Sword Art Alice, like
cancel burns. Yeah,
there's like cancel burns, and there's stuff that splits burn damage between instances of 1 and 3. Yeah. So there's a lot more burn ones out there than you might realize. But you need to get this card into your memory anyway for other cards in the deck. So you just so happen to completely dunk on AOT, incidentally, which is pretty cool. And then the next card is I Worked Hard Rem. This is one of the possible brainstorms in the deck. This is a Rest 2 brainstorm that searches. There's also an option for a Rest 1 search brainstorm. But the draw to this brainstorm, the Rest 2, is during the climax or attack phase. So during your opponent, like basically you don't stand by. So on your opponent's turn, when they stand by something to the field, everything on their front row gets minus 2,000 power times the level of the card
cost
they stand by. So for example, if they stand by a level 2 character onto their field, their entire front row is getting minus 4,000.
It's cost. It's cost. Yeah, it's always the cost part's really important, I think, when discussing the card. It's always, because a lot of people I think look at it and they like knee jerk at level, but it is cost. So
generally they'll overlap low.
Like, yeah, they do. It's like it's either for 1 copy it's minus 2k or minus 4k, and for what is it? 2 copies it's minus 4k, minus 8k. I think that's like the thresholds, right?
Yes.
If you had 2 out, you just dunk a 7/5 instantly. They have to hand really encore it.
Decentivizes your opponent from playing any sort of standby, or just like triggering into it incidentally. And a lot of decks that play standby go all in on it with like 8 of them. So, and they really aren't wanting to play anything from their hands. So you can really screw them over with this card if you get them onto the field early. You can even field a 3rd copy of this in the front row, which I sometimes do. Like, a lot of times you'll just have 2 sitting in your back row, because it's a rest 2 brainstorm anyway. So it's not hard to have 2 on your field, and then you can just, like, field a 3rd one as your attacker in, like, an open lane.
And then you have, like, a ton of neg power going out.
And then they really can't stand by. This deck doesn't wall up too big on defense, so it can be, even if they stand by, it might be a little hard to contest. But if you have 3 of them, 2 or especially 3 of them on board, like, you'll be able to get over whatever they do if you don't just outright kill their field.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people see the card and they'd be like, "Oh my god, my opponent can't play standby at all." And it's not that they can't play standby at all; it's that it forces the opponent playing standby to like play awkwardly. There's like this is like the first step. There's got to be the second level Yomi as well. Like there's a lot going on there because like it's I as strong as it is, I don't know if it's strong enough to like actually turn a lot of things off, especially if there's good costless targets like in the early game. Because if you're losing board on defense, then it kind of loses a lot of its luster. But I think the best part of the card is it de-incentivizes triggers to the front row. It's like super damaging to like extra triggers to the front row, which is like pretty damaging to 8 standby.
Well, even if they put their card onto the back row, they still get the next.
Yeah. I mean, like
only to their front row.
I mean, like successive triggers, like when they trigger, because like they can play around probably the one that like they play from their hand. They can probably set up their turn, but like if they get an extra trigger, and like one of their lanes is just going to outright die if they get hit with a neg 2k or something, like one of their chumpers, like that really sucks. They have to give it up, which is like, you know, the whole point of an 8 standby deck. So it's still super good, but there's it's not like a one fits all. You got to field a lot of copies of it.
It's not like a one hit kill against the
big standby stuff. Yeah,
the anti-ping rem is way more damning against the decks that it hits. It's like a game-winning card. But the anti-standby, I feel like we just don't have the right build for it yet. I'm going to talk about that a bit more at the end of the video, about possible ways this deck adapts and really like hones in on the standby meta. But let's just get to the rest of the deck first. Yeah. Next, we kind of have like the glue of the level 1 game. 4 copies of Dot Ram, 3 copies of Snow Bunny, and surprisingly, probably the biggest surprise to you watching, is 2 copies of the Rize. The one thing that Memory Snow does really well, like I said that the set kind of goes all in on like the things it goes all in on. Memory Snow, everything is 2,500 power at level 0, and everything looks at the top 3 cards of your deck. Like everything. The Rem that goes to memory looks at 3 cards. The Rize looks at 3 cards. Your level 1 combo, 3 cards. Your finisher, 3 cards. And the deck can feel very slippery. Haha. Very icy, very slippery. It's a really good way to describe it, actually. Because you have all these effects that are looking at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, and then you realize, oh wait, I've gone through my entire deck, and now like my climax isn't shuffling back, or I'm not ready to refresh. I've gone through it too quickly. So I feel like the biggest challenge of actually building and playing this deck was actually just like getting the reps in with it was really helpful. That was the most helpful thing with Memory Snow for me, because you have to like be really careful with your mill 3 effects. A lot of times you want to be stopping after 1 or 2 cards. Like if you flip over the first card and it's good enough, consider just taking it.
Yeah, always count. Always count during your mills.
Yeah, and count before you go to like before you start taking your turn too. Because if you think like, maybe I can get through this deck this turn, you probably can, but you maybe shouldn't. Because if you have good compression, you don't want to waste it. But if you have bad compression, you can fix it really easily. But you really got to be careful with the mill 3 effects. And if something's good enough, you should probably take it. Because on the times where, because it is kind of like a random thing, right? Like you can only take characters. So if you hit an event or a climax or a non-memory snow trait character, which believe it or not, you can run in this deck. They are Neo standard with each other. You want to go another card so you can actually get your plus. So for the times where you're like hitting a bunch of climaxes and shit, you want to make sure you can get a card off of it. The dot RAM I think is really important too. It's like a $20 box topper promo, or not $20 anymore. I think it's like 10 or 12 now. But I think this is a staple four of in the deck. Um, the deck is so stock hungry. Like later on at the top end, like early on, you're kind of like tri-fielding, swinging 3 times a lot early on to build up a lot of stock for your end game, and even early plays at level 2.
Because you got to send
Um,
that rem to memory, so like that gives it a. You got to send at least 2, so that's a 2 extra stock you got to build over the course of the game.
yeah, it sounds like it wouldn't be too hard, but it actually really
It really hurts.
it's a big challenge in the deck is taking advantage of the rem that goes to memory. Because it's really good, obviously, when your opponent's using ping effects, but when they're not, you still have to get the card into your memory. So you need to be building up a lot of stock along the way. So you want to be tri-fielding and attacking a lot at level 0. And the dot ram's actually super handy because you get to look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck when you play it, and then when her damage is canceled, she goes to stock. So you look at the top 2 cards of their deck. If they don't have a climax there, you swing with something else first to clear those cards out of the way. Then you go for the ram.
Yeah, you increase your chances to get
you
that
increase
stock
your
charge.
chances. And hey, if you see a climax on top, you know, okay, I'm just going to swing with this first. So you can almost always get it to go to stock fairly easily. Like it's going to go to your stock most of the
time. Yeah.
And even like throughout the game, just being able to like look at their top few cards and then like figure out how you want to attack is kind of nice too. Just to like push the most damage and be aggressive because it's an aggressive deck.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm talking a long time about these level 0s.
I mean,
There's just so much to talk about at level 0.
They're the most
Memory
important
Snow.
part of the deck, I think. The level 0s are the most important part of Memory Snow.
Yeah, I think there's like 20, maybe more.
Yeah, I believe
like 22 level 0s in this deck.
20 to 22, yeah.
Another thing you can do with the dot ram that I think's pretty sneaky that I like to do is I'll play like if I'm going first. As I was saying like before, I really like tri-fielding with this deck and getting like a bunch of stock early in the game at level 0 where your deck's like really powerful. Sometimes you can just like play the dot ram turn 1, look at their top 2 cards. Like you don't see a climax on top, so it's not going to pop to stock. Then you just pull the dot ram in the back row and either play like another attacker, like maybe a Snow Bunny or a Rize, and attack with that instead. Or there's times too where I'm just like, oh, you don't have anything on top of your deck to cancel with, so I'm just gonna pull this to my back row and pass turn. Give you the initiative. You can play 1 or 2 cards down, and then I'll tri-field you on the way back. You can always go second with this deck. You just pass when you go first. You don't always do that, but it's not a complete joke. It's like a
It is a
play.
It is a play. Yeah, especially because of cards you're running when we get to next slide.
Especially since spoilers, I'm running the Rem Clean Cut from original Memory Snow.
Or original ReZero.
But then we have Snow Bunny also. We don't run yellow in the deck, but
it lets you
just
try
a really nice
field.
card. Gives you memory compression, helps you get your level 1 combo off every time, and it's just a good card to try field with because you don't care if it dies.
Refunds your card, goes to memory, gets itself out of. Doesn't like it's dead later, then it removes itself. Good card.
Yeah, I could realistically see myself add another copy of this if I wanted to maybe cut something else, but I think 3's enough because
it's dead later.
Again, you have like high stock requirements for this deck, and you don't always want to be paying 1.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to some of the more auxiliary level 0s. 2 copies of the Dreamlike Scenery Ram and Amelia. This is on play. You can discard a climax, salvage a Memory Snow character. The deck runs Book and Pants as our climaxes, which are both climaxes that always add other climaxes to your hand. So having a way to get rid of them is nice.
Also gives 1,000 power, which is good for trying to pump over stuff. Since your stuff's kind of small.
1,000 power to an Amelia or Rem, which is like all your attackers in the deck.
I think that part's like pretty important since I think at every level outside of like the clean cut, you're like never hitting like that great of offensive thresholds, you're just a non-interactive deck, so you normally don't care. But if you ever want to like push for power, that's kind of
It
like one of
helps.
the
It
only
helps
ways to
you.
do it.
You're not going to be like way over stuff power wise, but you can just like inch above something if they're trying to wall you.
And at least force counters, which like forces your opponent to bleed resources, and you generate so many resources because you're a more aggressive deck that you don't really care. So I think it's a really important card for this set.
Yeah. Um, the real reason it's there, the main reason though is it's Memory Snow's a searching deck. You have a ton of deck access. Brainstormer searches. Snow Bunny Ricky searches. Um, Again, every card in the deck looks at the top 3 cards of your deck. So you have a lot of deck access, but no grave access. So this is how we access cards in our waiting room if they get sent there.
Mm-hmm.
2 copies of the Rem or of the Rem Clean Cut. I was originally on 3 copies of this card. But since everything in the deck is like a check top 3 for a Memory Snow character, the fact that you can't hit on these is something. It's a deck building restriction. I think a lot of people who play Memory Snow get scared off of running non-Memory Snow cards because of this, but the deck can comfortably accommodate a handful of non-Memory Snow cards. But you just got to be more careful with like how you're doing your mill effects, and I think the Clean Cut's worth it because it just fits so well with tri-fielding early. For a few reasons. Well, not just for tri-fielding, but because of the cards you can Clean Cut. Specifically, it lets you use the send a memory Rem as kind of like an attacker to build resources with, and then like you can pull it to the back row and then do the pay 1 send a memory effect. Other than having to just play the card and immediately sacrifice it, you can kind of like use it as an attacker, pull it to your back row to save it, and then next turn maybe like brainstorm with it and then sacrifice it.
Mm.
The other thing I like to do with it is I look at the top couple cards of their deck with dot ram, see that they don't have a climax there. So like if my dot ram doesn't hit a climax to send itself to stock, you can just cut it to your back row with the rem and then try again next turn. So it's even more of a guarantee that you get the stock.
Mm.
Yeah, clean cut rem fits super well in this deck.
Not gonna lie, Andy. When I saw this and I was putting it together, I forgot that you only had this at 2. I think a lot of people would see this at 2 and say this is a little greedy. Like, what would you say to that? Because I think like a lot of people who want to like play clean cut and right field aggressively would be running like 3 if they had a Ricky that could search it, or 4 if they weren't. So like yeah, like because I know you've seen a lot of success with it at 2, so I want to like get your opinion on that, like that sort of opinion on it.
Why I'm running a low count of it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you actually mentioned it just now too. Why you could run maybe 3 if you have a way to search it, 4 if you don't. The problem is it's off trait. Everything in
Yeah.
Memory Snow searches for Memory Snow trait.
Okay. Yeah.
The clean cut rem isn't Memory Snow trait, but the traits the traits the Ricky checks for are magic and weapon, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Magic
And
weapon.
everything in the deck's magic, so you can clean cut anything with this, but your effects that are like looking at the top 3 cards of your deck, like your sacrifice rem or your combo,
Can't take it. Yeah.
can't take it. You can't search it off the Ricky. You can't salvage it with your salvage card. So you have to hard draw this card. So it's definitely something you want to keep when you open with it, but this is actually the card that I level up over the course of the game. Every time one of these ends up in my clock, it's immediately the card I level up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you lose value. You're not really clean cutting stuff later in the game with this deck. And outside of the first couple turns, it's not going to be very useful. And then you just want to get a non-memory snow card out of your deck.
Okay. Yeah, I just think a lot of people would see only 2, and it would be kind of sketched out. But I guess it's more of like when you open with it, you can play for it. Versus,
you could actually consider it greedy to run this card in the first place. Running any copies of this card instead of 0 is a bit greedy. And if you're a bit sketched off about running the non-memory snow trait, you could just run more copies of the mill runner, which I have below. When I cut one of the clean cuts for another non-memory snow card later on, I just swapped one of these for this Mill Runner,
Mm-hmm.
which is another way to like aggressively get a lot of attacks early on.
Okay. Yeah, I just figured I'd
So
ask.
that's why it's just like one random runner in there, is because it originally was another clean cut, but I just switched it to another plussing 0.
Yeah, so it's like one of these three. That's your opener. It's sort of like an overlapping card. Like if you were taking a picture of this deck or something, you would put those three like in the same spot. Be like, these three are like, effectively the same spot.
Probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can mulligan really aggressively with the deck too, because you have so many zeros, but the clean cut's like the one card I'll always keep in my openers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's enough about level zeros. Jesus Christ, I gotta take a drink. My mouth is so dry. Alright, the rest of this should be downhill from here.
Zero's pretty
In a good
important.
way. We're coasting downhill. We're skiing. Alright,
On the snow.
level 1 combo. That's not it, Rem. She sits at 5,500 power, and on attack, you get a look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck. Take a Memory Snow character from among them, or Horrific Mayonnaise event. Yeah, I don't know the context of the mayonnaise, but
Neither do I. I haven't seen the OVA.
yeah, but you can either take the event card or a Memory Snow character. Look it up to 3. And she gets a level for the turn. So I'd never had that really come up, where the extra level was useful.
I think in English, the only thing it will matter against is like Bang Dream, where they're playing the Fever and they're playing the Cosme Bomb, or Love Live Sunshine. That's like about it.
Yeah, something that's running red bombs. But I mean, I guess those are both like matchups that will come up. Love Live Sunshine and Bang Dream are both popular decks.
Yeah, I think those are the only two running a lot of red bombs right now in English. But like Konosuba might go back to running its red bomb if standby becomes a thing. So like, those 3 sets: Konosuba, Bang Dream, and Love Live Sunshine. Love Live Sunshine, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah, well, regardless, you're not playing it for the extra level. It's just the best level 1 combo that the set has.
Yeah.
Not much to say there. Just a really solid overall card. I like the fact that it's on attack. You don't need to get a reverse. You kind of can just ignore your opponent and do your own thing with this deck. But again, just be careful with how many cards you're going through with this. You don't want to just like autopilot go through 3 every time.
Especially if you've already refreshed. Yeah,
because usually when you're getting your level 1 combo, because the deck mills so well, you're already like through most of your deck. And I like to try to get this climax to shuffle back if possible, so you have to leave 1 card in your deck. So you gotta like count it out before you go to your attack step. And it can be even a little more difficult too, because you have to account for the fact, what if I trigger a book along the way?
Yeah.
So just be careful with it, but very good combo. A couple more level 1s that play really nicely with the Rem. There is the Horrific Mayonnaise event card. You need to have a Rem card to play it. Yeah, not really a condition. But you look at the top 7 cards of your deck for either the combo Rem or the climax that combos with the Rem. So either of the 2 cards on the last slide. You're looking at the top 7 cards of your deck for those 2 named cards, and you get one of them to your hand. It just helps you ensure you get your combo off like every single time.
Like a functional 5th and 6th copy of both cards, which is really cool.
Of like everything, yeah. Also has like some incidental deck thinning too. So like if you're gonna brainstorm on your turn, try to use mayonnaise first, because you can thin a clean card out of your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you hit a Rem, or you can thin a climax out of your deck if you want to as well. So if you're trying to hit the climax, maybe consider like
leaving it
brainstorming first, or doing this first to make sure you hit the climax. There's multiple lines you could take. And then the 2K backup. I've run 3 copies of this before, but I think I only had room for 2 in this build. This current iteration. You don't really have a ton of selectivity, so it can be hard to get these, but if you do mill into them with your rems, you can like use it, back yourself up to 7,500, which will probably win a lane, and then combo again the next turn.
Yeah, anything that will help you do the combo more times, because that's the name of the game here. You want to try to do your level 1 combo as much as possible, because you're like level 2 no matter what package you choose to play. Can be a little frustrating if things don't go exactly your way. So you're kind of like overcompensating with being able to loop your level 1. So the backups are super helpful if you can cheese out even one lane with it. Even though 75 isn't that big, it's still worth playing for.
Yeah, 7,500 is not. You're not like walling up, but
you're trying to like snipe your opponent on defense with one of these a lot of the time.
Yeah, you can live back a turn, and then between living back a turn, maybe hard encoring if you need to, or like using mayonnaise events or brainstorms on your fresh deck, you should be able to get into another combo. And then rounding out level 1s, just a couple 1-ofs. This No Cheating Amelia gets 1,500 power when you play it, and if you have the anti-ping rem in your memory, you to draw ditch on play. Just kind of like an option I threw in the deck just to like help me filter out like climaxes if they get stuck in my hand. Because again, books and pants will have tendencies of getting more climaxes in your hand, so it's kind of a nice way to ditch. This is actually what the backup turned into. If you want another backup, you could just turn this card into another 2K counter, but the split I'm running currently feels pretty good. And the Hot Spring Subaru, he is an apple bond to your mayonnaise event. I've seen a lot of people run like really high counts of both of these cards. Like they'll run like 2 or 3 mayonnaise and like 2 copies of this event bonder, but you don't want to flood out on the mayonnaise. You don't really need a lot of it. You just need like a little bit of mayonnaise.
Just a little bit of mayo.
Yeah, this deck's like a Subway
mayo.
Sandwich. You know,
Light
just
mayo.
a little bit of mayo.
Gotta ask for more. That's why you gotta run the 2-1 split. No, 2-1 split always felt really good.
Yeah.
For the event, because it's good, but it's not that good, right? It's like there's like what's the way to describe it? There's like diminishing returns for running additional mayonnaise man. So like
that's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
You don't want to like run a bazillion of it, but like the Subaru gives you an attacker, so you're not running low on playables for no reason, and then you can get it back.
Mm-hmm. Nice stock out too.
Yeah, good pay 1 bond. Gives you a card.
Next slide, we're going to talk about the level 2s and level 3s. They all fit on one slide, basically. 1 copy of the anti-change counter. It's not like you're really going to be defending your early play with this or anything. It's not like it walls up that big, but the fact that it's just such a good anti-change counter, like I say this a lot, but I think most anti-change counters are kind of shit. ReZero is like the only set that has good ones.
Like, it's such a good cost. Like, even a deck where you're so strung out for resources like Memory Snow, especially stock, you can still afford to play it. That's how good the counter is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Even just like 1 copy just to threaten it is worth it.
Because if your opponent doesn't see it at all, they just won't respect it. And like that's a big thing when you sit down against ReZero. You have to respect the anti-change counter because it's so completely like debilitating, and they don't like truly pay much of anything to do it. So you have to be able to threaten the card. And for those of you that don't know or haven't read it yet, this is exactly the same profile as mainline ReZero. So exactly the same card, just for Memory Snow, and has the Memory Snow straight, so you can grab it.
Yep. The early play in the deck that I'm running is this Amelia. She early plays if you have 2 or more of the anti-ping rem in your memory. So it's very important to be sending those to your memory early on. And it's one of the reasons you kind of got to be careful with how many. That is like another one of the cards you kind of have to clutch when you draw into it is the send to memory rem. Because you need 2 of them there by the time you hit level 2, so you can early play those. But anyway, on play, she heals you, and you top check your deck. If that card is a level 0 character, that character goes to your stock, so you can maybe refund one of your stock with this. Unfortunately, there's not too many good ways in Memory Snow to check the top of your deck. If
Like
you wanted to
just
make
a
this,
brainstorm.
yeah, that's what I
Right.
was gonna say. If you want to make it more consistent, if there's not a lot of standby in your meta, you can cut this anti-standby brainstorm and just run the Amelia Brainstormer, which scries on play for you. That's like definitely the biggest thing you lose out on running the anti-standby brainstormer. The rest too is the scrying on the Rem brainstorm. Or I mean the Amelia brainstorm.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a big deal. So don't expect to get your stock back off of this when you play it, but the fact that you should just be like generating so much stock just by swinging 3 times every turn, as long as you're like being aggressive and attacking and being careful with how you do things, you should have enough stock to kind of play 1 or 2 of these down.
Yeah. It's definitely like the weak. I think level 2. We've said it a couple times now. Level 2 is like the weakest part of the deck, unfortunately, which is why you're trying to always loop level 1 to keep up resources.
Mm-hmm. I've used the the Suba Wall combo before too here
Mm-hmm.
because it's more stock. It's a lot more stock efficient. Because it always just costs 1 and gives you
But
some nice compression
but
too.
it's not
But
slot efficient. That's the biggest
it
problem.
takes up way too many deck spots.
Like 9 to 12 if you want to play like that's like not counting like things that give it power and stuff like that. It's like a lot. It's a big deck building concession.
A lot of deck spots, but yeah. One thing I found playing with this Amelia though is the early play condition. While it's kind of hard to get 2 of them in your memory initially, 2 of the level zeros.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get it, you have it, and you can just keep early playing them, so you can really sustain your level 2.
Yeah, if you
So like,
if you get extra level 2 turns, you can always play another one.
yeah. So like most early play healers, right? They'll either be like maybe there'll be 2 or less climaxes. So you play one turn, and then on your follow up turn you cancel. Now you have climaxes in your waiting room. You can't do it again. Or if you have like a fulfilled condition, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
actually just like play an Amelia and then play a second copy. Crazy,
Yeah, you can just keep
and you
playing
can
it.
just heal twice. So if you get another turn at level 2, you can just slam another 1 or another 2 down and just heal some more. And then got this Light of Love Rem from the original ReZero trial deck, not Memory Snow trait. Draw 2, ditch 1 when you play it. It's whatever. Only reason it's in the deck is because I've had times where I'm trying to like tri-field my finisher and then I just lose access to one of them. Like one of them's either stuck in my stock or in a zone where I can't access. And you build up stock all game to go for your combo. So this is just another card that you can use as an off finisher. And unfortunately, this is like the best off finisher I could find in ReZero.
Well, I'm gonna move to the next slide here to show it. When you're going for your combo and you're ripping through cards with the rems that you do have, they top check up to 3, and they do add anything, so you can rip into that card as your like additional copy as well.
Yeah, it's like the one thing that hits anything in your deck is the level 3 Rem. Doesn't check for Memory Snow. So you can draw into the other Rem off it, but the swimsuit Rem, she's not really equipped for the cold weather. She's not really in there because she's particularly great in the deck. She's in there just because it's the best thing I could find to be an off finisher.
Mm-hmm.
But the real star is this Delightful Banquet Rem. On play, you if you have 2 or more characters, you get to look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose one, add it to hand. That is a summoning condition you do have to take into account. Since the deck does kind of lose board at level 2 a lot of times. Make sure
Yeah.
you like have your back rows and shit down so you can like draw into more copies of this Rem and the climax that goes with it. And then on attack, you need to have 2 copies of the anti-ping Rem in your memory. And if you do, you can pay 1. Look at up to 5 cards from the bottom of your opponent's deck. Choose up to 1 climax among them, put it into your opponent's clock, and send the rest to waiting room. So imagine like an icy tail, but it puts a climax directly into their clock. It's really rude. It's a hilariously rude
Yeah,
combo.
very
It's just
rude.
like, oh, there go
It's a
all
good
your
word for it.
climaxes, and then the one you did hit, it's going right into your clock.
Yeah,
Um, so this is a good way of punishing your opponent's good compression. If your opponent's playing a deck like Fate or Madoka
anything that's compressing super hard.
is just having a good game,
Yeah,
you can
honestly.
you can just really give them a middle finger and say, yeah, I'm removing a climax from your deck and I'm putting it right into your clock.
5 cards is a lot too, so you're like
And
moving your opponent through their deck. When
yeah,
they might not
so
want to.
the way I like to think of it is if I'm triple fielding this Rem combo, um, I kind of think of it like clock kick 4, because like each of these is gonna, you know, knock on wood, cross your fingers, is gonna hit a climax, put it in their clock.
Yeah.
And then going through that many cards, like if you go through 5 cards each with the Rems, and then at least 1 card for your attack with each, that's going through minimum 18 cards of your opponent's deck, probably more. So you're definitely getting them to refresh, which is like
Yeah, that's like the minimum's
it's like an
18.
invisible extra point of damage.
The minimum's 18 and like the top of that is like 6 over top. So, what is that? 24?
Something like that. I say minimum's 18. That's saying they cancel like every single attack.
Yeah, if they cancel every single one-on-one, it's only 18, but like it could be more than that. Somewhere in the range of like 18 to like 26, 27 cards. This would go
Yeah.
through, depending on if you trigger.
So a really fun combo, really good at killing your opponents through their high compression, but the combo does have a low damage ceiling.
Yeah, it doesn't have as much reach as I think people, when reading it, think it does.
It doesn't
But
have
it's
any
still
reach at
very
all.
good. Yeah.
Like maximum, you're dealing like because like you're probably not going to hit on every like bottom 5 mil or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably getting like 1 or 2, or probably like 2 to 3 clock kicks off of it, the refresh point, but you're not going to like 360 no scope someone from level 2,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
This isn't like last shot scene on or something where you can just like just go for it and get there.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of have to be like at level 3 already. But thankfully the deck is good at pushing damage the rest of the way. So it's the deck's very aggressive early on with slamming climaxes and attacking. And then at the end of the game, once they finally compress themselves, you punish them
Yep.
with this anti-compression card. It's
All
really funny.
Subaru's fault. Yeah, it is very rude. I think that's the best word for this climax combo. Like one of the most rude climax combos I've ever seen. Game.
Mm-hmm. Again, really lean. If you want to go to the next slide, just like with the whole deck list, it really leans into the whole concept of the deck's very all in on what it's good at. 2500 power at level 0, anti standby, anti ping, anti compression. But there are certain things like the set doesn't do. Like you don't have a lot of reach in the end game. You have a lot of really good level 0s, but a lot of them do the same thing as the other level 0s. And again, everything's like milling 3, so you got to be real careful.
Yeah. I do like the way this. I do really like your build, Andy. As someone who gave up on Memory Snow probably too early, it's nice to see.
Yep. And like I mentioned earlier in the video too, like if you really want to capitalize on that standby brainstormer, I think like going forward into like DAO meta where everyone's just going to be playing like 8 standby decks, or where that's going to be like a real big threat. You know, like we were saying earlier, like it's not like a one-hit kill against them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting 1 or even 2 brainstormers down and then just instantly winning the game.
And
Kind of have to put in a
yeah.
bit more work on top of it.
And
So
like, yeah.
yeah, so deck can switch around a little bit. Maybe switch around some, like lean into more backup heavy at level 1, so you can actually defend your field more. There's the 1/1 Roswell, which is like it's like an unkillable card. Can't be reversed by your opponent's cost zeros, and it gets, if you have a card in memory, I think he sits at 6,500, so pretty beefy too. So good defendable card. And the one I really like is the 1/1 Ram next to it. 1/1 5,500 gets 1,000 power on your turn. You know, whatever. But the real good effect on it is that on play, you get to take one of the rems you need in your memory and put it from your graveyard into your memory. So yeah, you're paying 1 for this card, but it's 1 less that you have to pay later on in the game to put one of those rems in your memory. Wow, Andy, that's really great. Yeah, I know, Carmen.
What?
It's incredible.
Oh, I don't like that card, but that's just me.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, not a fan, but it doesn't matter. I mean, like, it's just another way to get it into memory. But you know, deck slots and stuff depends on what your meta is. Yeah.
Yeah, that and the Roswell and the Dot Beatrice promo, which is like a 6,000. I think it's like a 6K clock encore.
Yep.
Or just some like beefier level 1s that you can, if your opponent does stand by and shrink their field, these are actually going to probably hit over what they're swinging into you, or at least force them to side attack you. And then, of course, like up the number of 2K counters you run.
Mm-hmm.
Another possible option, another route you could go. I was talking to Dean about this. You were like doing a little bit of brewing the other day with it. You can like run the yellow Memory Snow package that he's really fond of, like the Petra level 3, which actually contests Dow standbys pretty nicely. Summons level 0s to your field and gives them 9,000 extra power, I think. And yeah, I don't know. He was really red pilling me on it. He was saying like it really matches up well against them.
Yeah, I think the Petra is like deceptively very good. I want to check something real quick actually about the Petra. I didn't think about it until now. During the climax or attack phase when your opponent's characters, yeah, so it doesn't matter. I just wanted to double check that. The Petra pulling characters from your waiting room will never punish you, even if you have the Rem Brainstorm down, which is really cool. You can like crap out massive bodies from your waiting room for nothing when you play that combo, and only your opponent is like punished for summoning big bodies with standby.
Yep, and then you get the 3/3 Snow Bunny event as well, which is like the actual best finisher in the set, so that's cool.
Yeah, it just burns a bunch.
Yeah, I haven't really played with the yellow stuff too much, but I've seen the deck in action. It's pretty strong. We have some match play of that deck up on our channel. Go check it out.
Yeah, Dean himself piloting it.
The first SCC.
Yep.
But that was a long video, Carmen.
Yeah. I mean, you worked on this deck a lot, so that's
there's a lot of thought that went into it. We'll have the link.
Wanted to do it justice.
Link there too, and I have like a whole like fucking 200-word essay on.
Yeah, Andy just kept
my
adding
thought processes and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
he just kept adding to the description field. Like, okay, but yeah, we'll have that linked in the description. Same slide we have the end of all of our videos, Discords, Facebook groups, and there's a new one, the weissfight.net. I know we've talked about like TTS and stuff on here before. Well, guess what? TTS fucking sucks. You guys like Dueling Book? You play Yu-Gi-Oh?
I like Dueling Book.
Like online simulators. You guys should check out weissfight.net. It runs in your browser, the same as Dueling Book does. You can play Weiss against people all over the globe or your friends, whatever you want. Right now, it's in the early testing stages, but it's public. You have to use Encore decks to pull your decks in for now. There's no built-in deck builder. You use Encore decks to bring it in, which is really cool. We're like just sort of pooling community resources for it, and the dev gave me the green light to advertise it on the channel. So definitely go check that out. If you guys have feedback, because it is in open testing, join that Discord. Links in there. I also have the link in the description, both to Weissfight and to the Discord. You can put the stuff in there, and the dev is super crazy. They respond to feedback almost instantaneously. If you put some feedback in there and they think it's good, they'll just immediately work on it and throw it in there. Project's moving really fast. So if you want to play Weiss online and test some stuff in a simulator, definitely check that out.
Yeah, I definitely say check it out, because the more people that help beta test it, the quicker it's going to get to like the really peak refined point where, you know, I could see people running actual tournaments like online with this. I could see this being like the main way tournaments get ran online.
Yeah, it's really polished even already. There's a lot of features, so definitely check that out. By the time this goes up, I think the follow up to the retrospective video, the 2021 and forward video will be up, so definitely check that out. Set reviews were kind of held up on because Bushiroad hasn't announced anything new, but the second they do, we'll be in there. And we're going to continue our deck techs every other Friday. I know it's been weird with scheduling and stuff, but we're going to get back on that schedule. We're going to get back on that horse starting this week. So definitely look out for those every other Friday. Got anything else, Andy?
Nope.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.